recognition.
Come on. I mean, of course they're going to boo a division rival. I don't give a shit if the Saints quarterback is Jesus Christ himself. I'm going to boo it if he comes out on the field, bro.
All right, Fam Jam. It is Tuesday after the Super Bowl, which means Bropinions is coming at you with the analytical episode of the week. And boy, do we have a lot to break down. Super Bowl 57, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Philadelphia Eagles gave us one of the best Super Bowls that I can remember. The teams played their heart out. It was close. It was a 3-point game. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So welcome in, guys, to John the Stone, Nikki P.
What up, what up?
What up? You know, what it also means is, we're entering the period of sadness to where we have to wait months before we have more NFL football on TV. So, but, at least we have the combine coming up, then the draft in April, and free agency in March. So we'll still have content coming for you guys. But yeah, we're entering the sad period. No more football for a few months now. So
college football starts in 187 days.
Unless you want to watch,
starts soon. XFL starts soon.
The USFL starts soon too. So I mean, it depends if you call that real football. I mean, there's guys playing football, so I don't know. I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited to see. I remember vividly. I went to an XFL game before an NFL game, and this was back in the first round of the XFL. I went to a Birmingham Bolts game with my dad. And I was young and I didn't know any better, so I thought it was great. But it was an interesting experience to say the least. I had no clue what was going on because I didn't even watch like NFL football all the time. But my dad knew a guy who hooked him up, so yeah, we went to an XFL game. But that was the first go around.
If they were playing do you remember the old video game Blitz?
Yeah.
Where it was just murder ball. If they were doing that, that would be fun. Or if they did something like watching baseball, like the Savannah Bananas.
Guys were breaking spines out there.
Yeah, that would be great. You just blitz every now and break people's face. So, but it will be a while. College football starts 187 days. NFL starts in 202.
When does the MLB start?
Very soon.
Pitchers and catchers reported yesterday.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like late March, early April. It seems like opening weekend's always around my birthday, so.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think April 2nd is the first game.
Oh, sick. That is my birthday.
Yeah.
And my wedding anniversary.
And your anniversary. Look at there. There's still plenty to go. We do have March Madness coming up, which I think we'll probably talk about going into the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, somewhere around in that neighborhood. We'll have the Stanley Cup Finals, the NBA Finals coming in June. So those will be fun to talk about, a little spill off when we know a little bit more of the playoff picture, because I don't think any of us are as versed in those sports as we are in football. So once it kind of gets narrowed down and we know, the top 4 teams, top 2 teams that are going to play, we'll have some games to watch and enjoy it. And so with that, let's just jump into news going around. And the biggest news, to break my heart, on freaking Valentine's Day, is Todd Monken, the back-to-back offensive coordinator of your national champion Georgia Bulldogs, has been sniped away by freaking Baltimore and those jerks we know as the Ravens. And in the nice way of saying that is offensive coordinator Todd Monken is now going to be the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. But I think that Lamar is going to be gone, so I think it's a different offense than they have been running. But I'll open the floor up to see if y'all think Lamar can run in Monken's offense.
No. I think Lamar is gone. I think this is an indication that he is on the way out. And I mean, I think, like Nick said last time, that the rumors that they were like $100 million in guaranteed money off, I think that spoke volumes already. And now this move by hiring Todd Monken, I just don't see his scheme. I mean, good coaches, like they do what they can with the talent they have, right? They scheme to their talent. And I have no doubt that Todd Monken could create an offense around Lamar, but I just don't think it will happen. I think he was already on the way out, and I think this is just another indicator of that. And I was trying to find what his new contract is. I don't know if they've announced it yet or not, but going to be more than he was making at Georgia. So,
Well, yeah, he was the highest paid coordinator in college football last year. So
Oh.
it was not they had to pay him because it wasn't. He was happy in Athens. They were winning in Athens, everything, but the payday had to be pretty superb.
Yeah. And to piggyback off that also, they've already announced that Mike Bobo, which we were talking about in the beginning, was he's going to get promoted to the OC for UGA.
Yeah, as if we haven't already seen the Bobo show in Athens.
The Boo Boo show.
Yeah. You know, Aaron Murray, Chris Conley, AJ Green, Todd Gurley, those kinds of names, and they couldn't win the big one. I'm not saying it's all on Bobo. Mark Richt had a little bit of that to do with that as well, but the offensive play calling was always tough, always got ridiculed back in the day when Bobo was calling plays under Richt. So, anywho, then we'll look at the Raiders QB, Derek Carr.
Should we say about to be
free agent QB
Yeah.
Derek Carr.
Crazy.
Let's be real, he's gone.
Yeah, he informed the team. So he did have a no trade clause in his contract. And so he basically told them that he's not going to accept any trade, which essentially is going to force them to release him, which they did. Believe they did it officially yesterday. So he is a free agent. If they had kept him, if he was on the roster tomorrow, the 15th, they would have owed him $40 million. So yeah, he is now in a prime position to get hopefully for him, another big payday on one of these QB needy teams, because there is a lot of them.
Shout out Houston, shout out Carolina, shout out Tampa Bay, shout out
Indianapolis.
Atlanta, New Orleans.
Yeah.
Half the NFC. So that one, Colts have officially hired the Eagles offensive coordinator Shane Steichen as their next. Okay, well, you know, my Southern came out right there. As their next head coach. I thought they did Saturday.
Yeah, I can't remember if we had mentioned him when we talked about head coaching predictions on that episode. I think we did. But yeah, they officially hired him as their next head coach, going with an offensive mind there. I think it's the right move. I don't think Saturday was going to get them where they wanted to be. And obviously, I mean, coming from the Eagles, that offense, I'm excited about Jonathan Taylor in fantasy next season.
Sure.
He's talented enough to get it done. And with that offense, depending on the QB that they get, if they try to run like an Eagle-style offense, it's only going to mean good things for him. And let's be honest, it couldn't really get much worse. So I think
it's the line play. I think they have to improve line play for sure to get Taylor going.
Yeah, well, that was the biggest disappointment of last season, right? Was the Colts O-line from like that fantasy perspective. I mean, they just did nothing, didn't allow their talent to do anything there. So yeah, that's their biggest. I think even before quarterback, they got to fix that O-line situation. So,
yeah, I personally think the Colts are they should be in rebuild mode. I mean, like, you really look at that roster from top to bottom, there are a lot of holes. I mean, realistically, Pittman's a good wide receiver, but I mean, we wouldn't talk about weapons. I mean, what weapons do they really have outside of Pittman and Taylor? That's it.
Outside of Pittman and Taylor, they're Swiss cheese.
And Pittman, I don't think is a wide receiver one on most teams. I mean, he's a good wide receiver. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's definitely like a tier 2 wide receiver. I don't see a lot of good things for Indianapolis. I don't think it's going to go well for this head coach. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. I don't think the Eagles' offense was that prolific to warrant him getting a head coaching job, especially over somebody like Bieniemy. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, there's obviously a reason Bieniemy's not getting a job that we don't know, but I mean, at this point, we'll see. It's a we'll see kind of game because I mean the Colts traded away some assets to get some stuff, and I don't think the future is looking bright for them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is a rebuild, and I think they need to just go ahead and commit to it. Whether Irsay is going to let them do that, I doubt it, but I think they need to commit to it. If I'm not saying trade off all your assets, but I mean, like you said, the only 2 playmakers you really have are Taylor and Pittman. And if you're going to commit to this rebuild, trade them away. I mean, you're sitting at the 4th spot. You could easily go up to number one in trade with the Bears. I'm sure the Bears would love to have Michael Pittman. That's something I'm keeping my eye on from the rumor mill, because I think that's very likely. So I mean, if they commit to it and then go all out and do it, but yeah, I would agree. And then in other news, speaking of the Eagles, who not only have lost their OC, but now they've lost their defensive coordinator. Their defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, they haven't lost him officially yet, but it is heavily rumored that he's the favorite for the Arizona Cardinals head coaching job. So it's very likely that the Eagles are going to roll into next season without their OC or DC from this previous season where they went to the Super Bowl.
Is extremely tough. One side, I think, hurts him a little bit. I think the Eagles defense got a little exposed in the Super Bowl. Not crazy. They still had a good defense, but I mean, 38 points, let's be real. But two,
let's talk about the worst field in Super Bowl history. We'll get to that when we get to that, but I don't think we can blame the defense for
the new experimental grass that they rolled out into the sun and then rolled back in and spent $800,000. But
we'll get into it.
But Philly losing an offensive and a defensive coordinator, that's I don't care what level of football you're at, that's brutal.
Yeah, and
I don't think it's as big of a deal in the NFL. I don't. I mean, offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators leave jobs all the time in the NFL. I think once you've figured out a system that works, you can find a guy who can scheme around that system. I mean, the Falcons did it for years with Matt Ryan. I think there was only 1 year where he had the same offensive coordinator. So
yeah,
it's definitely possible that the Eagles are still a contender next year. But yeah, like you said, replacing an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator is tough. We'll see who they decide to go after.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is tough, and I think, like what Nick was saying, I think it's less obvious in the NFL because a lot of the times those guys, like those quarterbacks run the offense a lot of the time if they're, the good quarterbacks do. So, and I think when it comes to college, it definitely is more pronounced, just because those guys are still learning, and. So yeah, it's going to be tough for sure. But, I think they're still going to be a tough team to beat. And I think they still have a decent shot of going back to the Super Bowl. It just depends on how this offseason goes. So,
yeah.
And then last piece of news, which is exciting. Monday Night Football games next season, going into next season, Monday Night Football games can be flexed. Very similar to how Sunday Night Football games are flexed. So hopefully that just means better primetime games next year because some of those Monday night games were just absolute stinkers. So, and they're also talking about doing this for Thursday Night Football too. So,
yeah, I was about to say the Thursday Night Football on Prime was the first 4. I think there was 6 touchdowns total between the 4 games. Those were terrible. Who has the rights coming up on Monday Night Football? Is it Fox?
Monday Night Football is still ESPN, I believe.
Is it still the ESPN? Okay, because I know Prime will have all regular season Thursday or all the Thursday Night Football games, and then Sunday will be a rotating. I didn't know if they switched up on Mondays or not.
Yeah, and YouTube TV did get the rights to Sunday Ticket, which is exciting as a YouTube TV user. So,
and then Red Zone should be with a couple of places.
Yeah, it's on YouTube TV for sure.
YouTube, Sling. Because I don't know if anybody just keeps their old cable anymore. I haven't had cable in forever. So, but let's move on. Let's hit into the actual game itself. Super Bowl recap. So if you live under a rock, because if you don't care, then I wouldn't imagine you listening to this podcast this far into this, listening about
Speaking of living under a rock, or not living under a rock, I saw something that I wanted to bring up because I thought it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The Super Bowl had 113 million people watch the Super Bowl, which is I think it's the 3rd highest TV broadcast of all time and the second highest Super Bowl of all time.
Wow.
And I also looked this up because I was curious.
What the hell's in the top 3 that isn't a Super Bowl?
Well, no. So, I mean, so every TV broadcast except for one in the top 30 are all Super Bowls.
Yeah, so what's the one?
The MASH finale.
Yeah. Wow. Even the news coverage after Kennedy got shot, or all that stuff. Nobody cares about those things.
Oh,
No.
30 highest things are Super Bowls except for the MASH finale.
MASH and the Super Bowl. And the funny thing with the way we live now is Mr. Beast beats that near every single like every video he releases beats that. It's like the world today's crazy. Anyway, that's actually 113 million, and 1 30-second spot was $7 million. $7 million. Jace. So for everybody living under a rock, the Chiefs won. It was a 38-35 game. So I was wrong in the score prediction. I will say that they ran out the clock. They could have scored the touchdown, but then Philly would have got the ball back at the end of the game. So I lost the score prediction, but they could have scored a touchdown, and we don't know what would have happened with Philly. John, I think, had it as a 3-point win for the Chiefs, so he was right on target. And Nick had Philly by, what did you do, 7?
Yeah, I think 7.
Yeah, I think it was Philly by 7. Great game. I mean, this was a very exciting game. I ended up having to cook for like the first half of it, but I got to watch the second half, and it was really exciting. Jalen Hurts looks like a G. Like he did, dude. He was so good.
I mean, first, I think we talked about this last time, but first, or maybe we texted about it, but yeah, the first Alabama player to score points in the Super Bowl. And not only did he do that, but he rushed for 2 touchdowns.
The ESPN actually clarified this for us. And Alabama still has former Alabama player, as recognized by the NFL, has still never scored a point in the Super Bowl. ESPN clarified that and said,
"Oh, okay,
no, he's an Oklahoma prospect."
Well, that answers that debate then.
And I saw that stat, and I was like, "There's no fucking way an Alabama player's never scored the Super Bowl. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard." And then when we looked, it happened. Devontae Smith was 2 yards away from it.
Yep.
2 yards.
Yep.
But still, never happened. I could not believe that. So there was the predictions, and then we'll go ahead and get...
So we're not rolling with that narrative, John. No Alabama players scored in the Super Bowl.
Look, I still associate it. I still associate Jalen with Alabama, but...
Don't care.
Don't
care. He's from Oklahoma.
As ESPN has the record books, they said it was an Oklahoma QB, and he was the offense for Philly for the most. I mean, 3 rushing touchdowns. It's insane. So there was the predictions. Me and John got the team right. I got the score wrong. John got the score right, and Nick picked Philly, which all the pre-shows had Philly. Every pre-show that I looked at, it was just Eagles. Like nobody picked the Chiefs.
I was worried about my Chiefs pick because I was going to stick with it no matter what. But then when I saw the Fox pregame, every one of them picked the Eagles. I was like, sweet. I feel great about this now.
We're good.
I mean,
we're all right.
Let's be real. If they had played on an actual football field, then the Eagles probably would have won.
Yeah, so let's get into that. So the Sod Father, as apparently he is known as, this 94.
He's 96.
I thought he was 94.
At that point, who cares?
94 years old, still in charge of grass for the NFL. It's all right. So they said this during the podcast. Did they confirm that they tested a new type of grass for this game?
I've seen that go around a lot, and I would not be surprised. But as a 94-year-old, I guess it depends.
I mean, hell, does he even know the difference between grasses anymore? Look, I understand the guy's been doing it for probably 60, 70 years, but at this stage, like, I think we all understand that people start to get more lucid as they get older. They start to sort of lose that, thing that grounds them to reality. And it's like, let's be real, this field sucked. Multiple people came out and said it was the worst field that they had ever played on. I mean, the NFL spent $800,000 building this field over 2 years, and somehow it's soaked with water. Somehow
here's what I'm saying:
and sliding all over the place.
Can the 3 of us build them the one next year, and we'll take $700,000?
I mean,
I'll take $100,000, and I
will build that for you if you give this podcast $700,000. Hey, Goodell, we'll do it.
You give me $100,000, you can have all the grass in my yard. I don't care.
Exactly. Let's go.
I mean, that's the thing. You paid a guy $800,000 to build a field when it's like somehow, some way, every high school in America has figured this out.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Every high school in the United States. I mean, some of them use turf, but most of the high schools in the United States are on natural grass, and it's like
an article 3 days ago on ESPN. The turf is Tahoma 31. It's among the newer breeds. This is Josh Weinfuss, by the way. Newer breeds of grass that have been developed with the funding of the United States Golf Association. It's a mix of Bermuda grasses and ryegrass. It was developed at Oklahoma State. So yeah, it's a new type of grass. And I don't know if it's new to football fields or what, but it is a relatively new type of grass according to this article.
And you used something with the name Bermuda, and you didn't think it would be a little funky?
Yeah, I mean it's a golf grass basically.
Right. Yeah, golf grass isn't that supposed to be slicker than normal grass? So the ball.
Have y'all never heard of the Bermuda Triangle, bro? It was going to be bad.
Yeah, I mean,
Bermuda grass is pretty ubiquitous, but at the same point, it's like.
Well, on the same point, to add that, we've talked about this already as well, and this is in addition to, I will make that very blatant. In addition to the already extremely slick grass, when the halftime show went on and they lowered all those platforms on there, it's like it squished it. It did like a sponge, and it forced more moisture to the top of the grass. And during the third quarter, even us watching it on TV were like, damn, they're slipping a lot. Like, they can't get any traction.
Yeah, and imagine trying to pass rush when you're on ice. I mean, that's the thing for me. I mean, you look at the game stats, there's no sacks from the Eagles. I mean, this is the team with the highest amount of sacks in the NFL, and they got none. Now, I'm not saying that Kansas... Go ahead.
I was just by a wide margin, sorry.
Yeah, they were almost with the 85 Bears.
Well, it wasn't like 15, 20 more sacks than the next closest team. I mean, ridiculous amounts. Now, I'm not saying Kansas City's offensive line is not good enough to hold them to 0 sacks, but it's just like, you take that into account, then you look at all the slipping and sliding, and then you noticed in the second half that Kansas City scored on every single drive. I mean, it seems like the defense was put at a disadvantage because of this grass. Now, we did bring up the grass getting compressed. This is also something that was said by the 94-year-old guy who seems to be diverting blame from anyone but himself.
That came out of a report from Ian Rappaport. So I just want to give credit.
On the Pat McAfee.
No, but he said it was when he was talking specifically to that guy.
Yeah,
so
I know.
His direct source was that 94-year-old.
I'm just letting people know our sources. That's where we heard it.
Right.
But in addition to all the grass and stuff, let's get the big elephant out of the way of the holding call.
Yeah, I mean, all right. So first thoughts are, it was one of the best Super Bowl games I can remember up until that point, and it's really a shame that the game is going to be remembered for that penalty call. And honestly, I was very worried about penalties coming into the game because the crew that was officiating this game had thrown the most flags all season long, and I told you guys that. And I thought they actually called a pretty good game up until that last holding penalty. Now, I get
that was the first holding call. They hadn't called holding the whole game.
Well, and I mean, obviously, you're an Eagles fan, you're upset, and that's not a holding call, right? To me, it was one of those 50-50 calls. Juju said he was held, and Bradbury said that he held him. So, I mean, I don't know if he's just trying to accept responsibility and move on from it. Doesn't want to, whatever. I don't know. I don't know his thought process, but to me, it was definitely a 50-50 call. They could have called her, they could have not, and they ended up doing it. And it's really unfortunate because it was one of the best Super Bowl games I can remember in a long time, and I think this is what people are going to remember. Yeah, and I think this is what people are going to remember it for.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what you were saying, like you said, it was an amazing game, a great back and forth that ended with Kansas City draining the clock like cowards, and then kicking a field goal. Now, I understand it. You're not going to give away a Super Bowl. You're not going to give them possession just so people can have an entertaining time. But at the same time, I don't think anybody is arguing it wasn't a holding call. I think the issue is, like Drew said, that's the only holding call they called the entire game. And there are videos of worse, more egregious holding calls that happened earlier in the game. In my opinion, it's just with that time, with that amount of... the stakes could not be higher. it's the Super Bowl, okay? Like, the stakes could not be higher, and that's when you decide to throw that penalty. It just really grinded a amazing, fast-paced offensive game to a screeching halt, and it sort of just took the air out of the sails, in my opinion. And like you said, it does suck that such a great game is going to be remembered for such a crappy ending. But I mean, I don't agree with that being called there. It's just like, yes, it's holding, but it's like with everything on the line, you can't make that call.
Yeah, and I'll for anybody on YouTube, I'll throw the graphic that I saw right here. A lot of the people were going, "Oh, the left hand, the left hand." They didn't call it on the left. The ref, both coaches, everybody said that it was from the right, and they finally found an angle to where that's what the referee saw was the jersey grab. Now, I agree. If you're not going to call it the whole game, it needs to be pretty egregious. So I understand it, but with Bradbury admitting it, and I think Philly's coach summed it up great. He goes, "Look, you have to play better than the ref's ref, okay? Like, this didn't come down to one thing. If we were up by 14 points, it wouldn't have mattered. It didn't matter." So I get both sides of it. I think he's taking the high road, and it hurts losing a Super Bowl like that. So I think that's the way he was doing it. But I also understand the point of, like, look, if this was third quarter in a preseason game and it's a penalty, you throw the flag. If it's 2 minutes to go in the Super Bowl, like, if it's a flag, it's a flag. I understand that point, but also, like, if you see another holding, you've got, like, it's the first holding call of the whole time. It wasn't a flag? Absolutely. Did it get called? Absolutely. Do I think what I've done, what Andy Reid done, run out that clock and do not give the ball back to Jalen Hurts after the way he was playing?
Of course.
Absolutely. Don't give him the ball. But I do agree with the inconsistency of it. Because I'm like Nick, there was other holding penalties there that just weren't called, and maybe your eyes weren't there because you were trying to look at Jalen, or you were trying to look at Patrick, or Kelsey, or this or that, the big name players. I mean, because refs are human, they're not going to look at the third wide out when you got Travis Kelsey over here, where you don't want him to get held and you not call that. So, but I think it just kind of cemented it going when Bradbury said, "Look, I was just hoping I'd get by with it, Do I think it impeded the route? Do I know that Patrick overthrew it on purpose just to get him to look there? Absolutely. And that's just Patrick knowing what he's doing and go, I'm going to draw attention to that for sure."
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm not a Nick Sirianni fan, the coach for the Eagles. I'm a fan of the players on the Eagles team. I don't like the coach. I don't like the fans. I don't like anything else about them. I'm sad for them that they lost because they did have a really good season. But I do agree with him on what he said about you have to play better than the ref's ref, I think is what you said, that he said. And that's what I want to get into next is just that, they had some mistakes. They didn't have a lot of them, but the ones they had were big. I mean, Jalen on that rush where he just went to switch hands to bring it down, and he just lost it. He completely fumbled it. And that scoop and score, that was, a big mistake by them. And it wound up, being one of the things that cost them the game. And then, Bucker missing that field goal. I don't know if that was turf or it was just him doinking it. It looked like it was off to me from the start, but it could have very easily been the turf like we talked about.
Did he go to Ohio State?
Bucker?
He went to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, he's a Georgia Tech guy.
I'm just being a jerk.
Oh.
I honestly think the fumble was the play of the game. If they don't fumble, they're gonna. If he doesn't fumble and they scoop and score, they're probably going to score just because Philly just they figured it out, and the Chiefs were not adjusting quick enough in the first half. You go down 21-7, even with Mahomes. That's tough. Then that changes your play calling for Philly. That changes so much. They tie at 14-14 on a scoop and score. You let the Chiefs stay in it, and you let Andy Reid and that experience stay in that game. That was the play of the game to me, just from a momentum standpoint. That Philly never could get all the momentum back that they had built in the first, quarter and a half of that game.
Yeah, I do also want to add that the Eagles are now only one of two teams with the Falcons to give up a double-digit lead at the halftime of the Super Bowl.
And the city of Philadelphia has a new world record. They're the only city to lose 3 championships in 99 days.
That sucks, man. I mean, it sucks for those players on those teams. I think
that's a brutal stat.
Yeah, I guess the Eagles fans got some karma after they booed Dak during the Walter Payton Man of the Year recognition.
Oh, come on. I mean, of course they're going to boo a division rival. I don't give a shit if the Saints quarterback is Jesus Christ himself. I'm going to boo it if he comes out on the field, bro. Like,
well, I just found the thumbnail to start the video. Right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like we mentioned already, it's unfortunate that the game's going to get remembered for that penalty, but the Eagles definitely, that fumble really cost them for sure. So, but it was a good game. Congrats to the Chiefs. Congrats to Mahomes. I think, it's like he said, he doesn't want to call it a dynasty because he's still going out there and trying to win. I do want to bring up, because we talked about it, and Travis Kelce kept going back to the point during the post game about how nobody said they were going to make it back. I just want to point out they were the third highest odds to make it to win the Super Bowl during the preseason. So I get there was a lot of question marks with them letting Tyreek Hill go and that whole situation. And if that's the narrative, if that's the narrative that they want to tell themselves to drive them, like fine, but I don't think anybody was saying that they weren't going to make the Super Bowl again.
No, I mean, it was funny. Everybody doubted us. Everybody doubted us. It's like when that Georgia player, after their second national championship in a row, came out and was like, "Oh, everybody was doubting us." Like, who was doubting you? You were the number one preseason favorite for most of the analysts. Like, there were maybe 2 or 3 other teams in the conversation. What the hell are you talking about?
I'm not a big Rihanna fan. I thought the show was average. I think. So, did we confirm she is pregnant or not?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
She is? Okay. So that maybe explains why, I think she did a good job. But I mean, to me, I'm just not the biggest Rihanna fan. So I thought the show was average. Definitely didn't leave an impression on me like, Prince's halftime show.
Everybody complains about the Super Bowl halftime every single year. Even the one last year with Snoop and Eminem and everybody wanted to see. People complain about that one too. I mean, it's like there is. If I'm an artist, I'm not doing the Super Bowl. There's no reason to do it. I mean, Beyonce got clowned off the stage for bringing in Coldplay. The Maroon 5 one was just straight up terrible. And then you've got, the one last year that I thought was great that everybody bitched about. And then you got this one this year, and it's like, yeah, she didn't do any crazy theatrics or whatever, but like, it was still a good performance. She sang well. Her songs sounded good. The dancers did a good job. What is there to complain about? Why are people so up in arms?
She was absolutely lip syncing.
Who cares?
I mean,
who cares?
I don't, because I wasn't.
She's a multi-millionaire pop star. Who cares?
I was just worried about anybody following last year's, because I'm like Nick. I thought last year's was amazing.
I thought last year's too.
Following the one from last year to this year, I don't think anybody had a great shot. I still think Prince's is the best one that's been done. The one that's most remembered is the nip slip one, I think.
Oh yeah.
And for like it wasn't planned. Okay. But yeah, Prince's was great. I think she did what she could. I mean, a pregnant woman 200 feet in the air on a platform, I wouldn't want to do that. So
I would want to do that right now.
Yeah, I want to do that now. So, sure, it was kind of average. But she did 13 songs in 12 minutes. You were at least watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think it was bad. I didn't mean to come off that way. I didn't think it was bad. It just, for my musical taste, I just thought there was better ones. But I think she did a good job.
Am I going to remember that one? No.
But yeah, and that is true that everybody wants to complain about the Super Bowl halftime show, and it's because, you take these artists that people don't normally listen to, and you put them on a stage to where, they're being listened to by people who don't normally listen to them. And then those same people are the ones that go, "What was that? That sucked." It's like, well, you just, you don't listen to that music, so you're not going to like it, obviously. So I'm with Nick. If I'm an artist, I'm not doing the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah. I do want to give one special shout out to whoever on the Chiefs staff, some analyst, sat and watched film for a long time, because both of those ridiculously wide open touchdowns. They knew we're going to be that wide open because they started a jet sweep, they started pre-snap motion, and both times the defense snapped on it so hard that they were just gone, and they stopped it and came that way. And that was not a happenstance. They knew that was going to happen because they looked at the aggressiveness on Philly's defense. So whoever that guy is, kudos to sitting and watching that much film to be able to know that. Those two play calls were nuts. Plus, Tony had an incredible game. A midseason pickup, that ridiculous punt return, the touchdown there.
Longest punt return in Super Bowl history, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that play, so I actually saw Andy Reid talk about that play. You know what that play's called? Corn dog. He calls it corn dog, and the guy asked him why, and he was like, there's nothing better than a corn dog with some ketchup and mustard. So typical Andy Reid. But yeah, I mean, that play, I won't say that kudos to that guy for sure. I won't say that they knew he was going to be that wide open, because, but he was. And then for them to run that play and then flip it to the other side and do it with Sky Moore again, and he was still that wide open. The Eagles were definitely tipping something off there. So yeah, that was just another reason that the Chiefs were so prolific with their scoring in the second half. The score on every side was impressive.
Shout out to the two receivers too, because they had to sell that. Like, they were moving to sell that they were going on a cross jet sweep, and then just stop and chug back the other way. One, the safety switched off with a middle linebacker, I think, and on the other one they were just playing cover zero, and he just went to keep up with him. And when he stopped, defense just kept going. So one was a cover one, and one was a cover zero look on both of those plays. And the receivers sold it like they were going to cross, and then just stopped and turned around. And that's impressive.
Yep.
So there's those. That covers most of the game. I guess the commercials, and the one that I remember the most is Tubi being an absolute bastard.
Have you seen all the videos of people like looking for the remote and people getting into fights and everything?
Yeah. I mean, when we were sitting there looking, I looked at everybody because I wasn't at my house, and I didn't want to be a jerk, but I was like, there's like 7 minutes left in the fucking Super Bowl. What are you doing? We're not watching a movie right now. What? So that was the one that just stuck out to me, because the whole damn country went, wait.
Yeah, the one that stuck out to me the most was the Brighter Boston Sam Adams commercial. I work with a lot of people from Boston, so I just thought that one was particularly funny. And then the Duncan commercial with Ben Affleck was pretty good too.
I guess Nikki P doesn't have a favorite commercial.
I really didn't think any of them were that good this year, to be honest. I think the past couple of years, the Super Bowl commercials have been just kind of shitty. Yeah. None of them have really stood out to me. Like, none of them have really, like, resonated that much with me, so.
Yeah, not like they were back in the day.
Right.
Well, we're not going to get the 1984 Apple.
True.
Like, the Real Men of Genius commercials, I still remember those, So.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk for a minute, because obviously it was very prevalent through this game, and we touched on it already. But NFL officiating, they got problems, right? And I just don't understand, and maybe you guys can enlighten me, or maybe somebody listening can enlighten me on, I just don't understand how a multi-billion-dollar business, these guys are part-time, if you didn't know. After the season's over, they go back and focus on their regular jobs, and they have like a dark period, kind of like teachers do in some places. But for a multi-billion-dollar business, I don't understand how you don't hire these guys full-time, and then in the off-season, they do their own training camp. They all go to some conference, they study, they all get on the same page, so that, because like we mentioned during the game, I don't think, there are problems with certain penalties being called, but it's the consistency, not only in the game even, but between the crews. You'll have one crew that will call holding for a certain thing that another crew won't. And to me, I just don't understand how this big of a business can't afford to hire these guys full time and have that be their job. Give them benefits. I don't care. You got the money. So it's not a question of that. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Because I think it's something that, all season long we kept hearing about officiating. And it's not just this season. It's been, previous season, it's been building up. And so what do you guys think? Because I think that the NFL officiating needs to be full-time and that they need these guys to be consistently calling these things across the whole game and the whole season and across all the crews. So,
yeah,
How
I
many
think,
crews
I think
do you
specifically
actively
with the
need?
officiating, like, they've got to do better. I mean, this is costing people games. Like, bare minimum, point proven. Like, the Falcons lost a game because of a sack on or a roughing the passer call on Tom Brady this season. I mean, if you were in the camp of the NFL is rigged, you had a field day this year. I mean, with the amount of shitty officiating, the terrible officiating in both the NFC and AFC championship, and then you've got the questionable call at the end of the Super Bowl. It's just like all of these things under a microscope, under a lens, look really awful, especially considering they all took place in the microcosm of this season in particular. So it's like you said, it's been a problem in the past, but it's never been as bad as it is now, except for maybe that year when there was the referee lockout. But I think we can just wipe that year away. I think realistically, having referee crews is a big problem in itself, because that just creates an echo chamber of shitty officiating. Because if you've got an umpire or the actual head officiant that's making the choices and saying, hey, don't throw this flag, do throw this flag next time, here's what we need to work on. It's like, if that guy's doing it wrong, everybody under him is going to do it wrong as well. So it's like you've got to either diversify these crews and either swap them up. And I know that's an issue with like the union and stuff like that. I know the referees do have a union, and that may be another hurdle in the case of the NFL hiring the refs, because I know they probably don't want to deal with another union, because they're already in business with the players union, they're already in business with the referees association. So it's like hiring the referees, they probably would have to have some sort of unionization or something like that. I don't think the NFL wants to get involved in that because they just don't care. I mean, Roger Goodell came out a week or two ago and said the NFL officiating's never been as good as it is now. And it's like, how tone deaf of a statement could you make? Like, Roger Goodell is one of the most embarrassing commissioners in sports, but it's like, dude, have some self-awareness and shut the up. Shut the up. It's like, why are you out here saying, oh, the officiating's been so great this, like, we've seen it. We've watched the games, you idiot. Like, we can see with our own eyes, it's worse. The players are talking about it being worse. The analysts are talking about it being worse. Everybody notices but you. Like, grow up and fix it.
Mm-hmm.
You have hit a button, sir.
I mean, it's a big, important button.
No, I
don't like Roger Goodell, and I don't like the way he's handled this situation. I don't like the way he handles player safety, and I think he's an embarrassment to the National Football League.
I will say, I don't know how many, crews there are or anything, but a reset button wouldn't be terrible. If somebody offered me 150 G's a year and some benefits to just fly around and officiate football games, like, yeet, let's go, okay? I would do whatever it needed to do. I'd go to camp, and I'm like John. If you've got one player that comes out and says, oh, we're $100 million off, that's the difference. You have the money to wipe the slate clean, come up with 100, 150, 250 grand. I don't know what the referees make right now, but make it set. The head ref makes whatever, and then everybody under him makes the same amount of money. You do a week, a month, you go to some central location and update. This is what you're doing, run through, whatever. And I'm sure you can go to practice facilities at different places that have scout teams and run those things, and this flag here, and then you review footage. That's a year-round job. You can do that. And if you got one player that is holding out for $100 million difference, even if there's 50 refs, you're only talking $7 million. And that's every ref is paid.
But that would require them to care.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's a human function, and human functions always have problems and stipulations of things that we're not good at, just as humans. There's error in everything we do, but I don't think it would be too terrible, one, to make it a little bit younger. It's also, you've got like 76-year-olds running around with the 22, 23-year-old guys that are unbelievably athletic. If you would relate it a little bit more to where we're at, it's the same thing that I say and not to get political. I'm not getting political. I'm not taking a side. I'm just saying it's the same thing I think of in a political realm of the younger you are, you can relate to the more people that there are. And there's no question about it. You have no 70-year-old playing football in the NFL. So hitting a just clean swap and then just redoing the whole thing, like Nick said with the union, I don't think you can do that. But it's not terrible to think that.
I don't even think that's even necessary. I mean, I think you could do it, but I think you can do it with the people you have now. It's just that, bottom line, we've all worked part-time jobs. And if you work part-time and it's very obvious that the company you work part-time for doesn't care to invest in you, you're not going to care about the job.
Exactly.
I mean, these guys do this, and obviously they have a passion for it because they like doing it. I would hope. I mean, most of them would. But until you get paid full time, until you see the benefits, until you're excited to come to work and do what you do, you're not going to care. And like at just the most basic level, that's what the NFL needs to do. They need to get these referees excited about doing a good job, not just showing up. So
I think a lot of people underestimate how difficult it is to become a ref at any level of football. It's something I've looked into myself. At a high school level, I was thinking about being a ref last season. It's a lot more difficult to get into that than you think. I mean, there's a lot more rules than you think. I think, realistically, the refs probably make great money. They probably, as far as monetarily concerned they probably make plenty of money. I don't think it's necessarily that they're unmotivated to do their job. What did you say?
I just looked it up. There is no official count, but money.com has looked through tax documents and things, and the average for 2019, which is the latest that they could find, was the average NFL ref makes about $201,000 for a season.
Yeah,
with a 401k option matching to $18,000. Like, I would go do that as a full-time job for $200,000 anyway.
Yeah, 100%. But I think it's less about what they're getting paid and who is employing them, and it's more about, like you said, that off season that they have. They're probably not going to a camp and studying up on stuff. I mean, they're getting opportunities where they can, but it's like they're not getting constant year-round training. It's like there is no set, hey, here is what the NFL expects from referees, and that's what they need to have. They need to have some sort of forum where they bring in these officials and take them through a boot camp of, here are the new rules for this season, here are the rules we want to emphasize this season, here are the rules we want to sort of avoid next season, and things like that. But it's just like there's nothing like that as of now.
And you can't get that, even if they do that over a weekend, you can't get all the new rules in 3 days and like you can say, oh, we'll explain it to you, but without seeing it live, real time, it's hard to make those calls over a 3-day camp with as many rules as you got to keep up with. I mean,
I'm of the opinion just bring in the sky judge and get rid of human referees. I mean, it's the same issue that MLB has. You've got officials that think they're more important than they are, really. A lot of the times you've got guys that are making decisions based off of their own personal biases, and it's like, let's just eliminate that completely. Get a sky judge, put them in New York, or wherever the hell you want to do it, Canton, Ohio, I don't care, and then just let a robot figure it out. Because, I mean, if we're going to set clear ground rules, then it should be easy to follow.
Yeah, and I mean, we already learned that there was a microchip in the ball. That's how they track a lot of those stats anyway. So, I mean, that's got to be able to be used for something. And, I think you're all right, too, because, I mean, when you said that, I immediately thought back to that Chargers game where Joey Bosa said something and was walking off the field, and the referee tracked him down, said something to him, and then he threw a flag on him, and that ended up costing them. I think it was in the playoffs, too. I think that was one of the things that cost them that game. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of human error, and they got to figure that out, how to fix that.
Well, we're going to start wrapping up, I guess, on the last piece. What was the single moment that was favorite of the season?
Tom Brady retiring, because I'm tired of him terrorizing my team. So
I'm going to say when the Falcons benched Mariota, because I was ready to move on.
Let's see.
I want to also throw in another one of my favorite moments was when the Colts blew that gigantic lead to the Vikings at that game.
Oh man, what a freaking game that was!
I can't say that's a favorite of mine. Just feel bad for Matt, man. I
Yeah.
just feel bad for
I guess
Matt.
maybe
man.
not favorite, maybe memorable. I guess most memorable. I guess I should say.
Yeah. And I'll go with the first time DeMar came out after the incident.
Yeah.
Watching him be able to come back, that was pretty sick.
That was something we didn't talk about, but I thought it was really cool of the NFL to invite and recognize all of those trainers and workers and that took care of him during that whole time. I thought that was
Yeah,
cool.
putting them with the NFL awards, that was great. So kudos to that. Goodell, you still suck, but for that one decision that probably wasn't yours, you just okayed it.
Exactly.
Kudos to that. And I would be remiss to say that we are to miss the opportunity to say that we are thinking of Michigan State with what happened yesterday. So thoughts and prayers go out to those guys. New facts are emerging. I don't want to get into that. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to leave that for more reputable news sources. So if you don't know what we're talking about, just Google Michigan State University, and I will let places like CNN or wherever you get your news handle that kind of stuff. But thoughts for those guys. And yeah, I think that was a great NFL season. Kansas City comes out on top. Andy Reid gets 2 of the last 4. Mahomes looks great. Jalen looks fantastic. And way too early pick to end this on who wins the Super Bowl next year.
Oh, geez. I really want to see more of the offseason, but if you're making me pick right now, I don't know. I guess the Eagles.
Okay, Eagles.
Bengals.
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 Yeah, Bengals, Eagles, and I'll go out on the very massive limb and say your Jacksonville Jaguars finally redeemed themselves.
I was a millisecond away from clicking leave on this.
So anyway, Fam Jam, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl as much as we did. Probably binged too many wings and had a few too many brewskis. But we will see you guys Thursday. If you haven't yet, click that subscribe button. Hit the follow button if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcast. It will let you know when we upload. Hit that notification bell. And for John the Stone, Nikki P, my name is Georgia. And Fam Jam, until next time, we're out.
Who did he have as like quarterbacks there when he was the OC, right?
Aaron Murray.
Oh,
He couldn't win anything with Aaron Murray and AJ Green and Todd Gurley and Nick Chubb, and he couldn't win with like talent like that. Mike Bobo couldn't figure out a way to win.
yikes!
Just the SEC all-time passing leader.
And
Chris Conley.
NFL wide receiver and running back.
Yeah, no Sean
Is
Marino.
Aaron Murray really the SEC leading passer?
Yeah, that kid from Mississippi State will pass him this coming season. But if they keep the air raid offense, I don't know if they'll still run Leach's offense. But Will Rogers.
He is indeed 13,166 yards.
That big brain of college football coming out. You.
And the number 3 is David Green, 11.
I mean, can we consider that college football knowledge? That's just Georgia knowledge. I mean, I don't think anybody's questioning that you know everything about that university.
If you really want to impress me, who's number 2 between Aaron Murray and David Green on that list? It's not who you expect it to be. It's not Peyton.
Tim Tebow?
Nope.
It's a 4-year starter. Did he play for Florida?
Mizzou.
Oh, Drew Lock.
Yep.
I needed the team, but I got this.